No one look at my desktop background. I usually turn off the monitor for videos, and I don't want you to see it. I don't know why, but my monitor won't turn off. Just nobody talk about it. It's just a picture of Donald Trump waving around a sword that is covered in a cake that he cut. I think the cake on the sword is just an important detail. I don't think I've ever made a video specifically about Bill Maher, but I'm sure I've mentioned him before. It does kind of feel like making a video about someone in a retirement home. Like, he's so far removed from me. Does he even know what YouTube is? Can he log into the computer? Has he ever seen the annoying orange? But hey, I made a video about Greg Buttfeld, so this geezer's probably fair game. I love talking about comedy, especially political comedy. And as someone who also talks about politics in a comedic way, Bill Maher's material is hauntingly bad, and his new special is a new low. How do you like that? That was pretty good. Subscribe right now, and the bell too. Subscribe to the bell. So if you aren't 58 years old, or the kind of person who watches things they really hate for seemingly no reason, Bill Maher is a political comedian who's been on different TV shows for like 20 years. Bill Maher made a name for himself in the early 2000s. Most of his political comedy at the time centered around criticizing the Bush administration, Republicans, the war in Iraq, and conservative culture in America. And Maher carried that momentum with similar material all the way up through the first Trump administration. But he's always been kind of this crotchety, elitist, smug asshole. He was a champion for anti-political correctness in the 90s and early 2000s, which was a precursor to modern day cancel culture style culture war rhetoric. And it was just as annoying back then as conservatives are about cancel culture now, but there just weren't as many people doing it. I feel like a lot of people have had a Bill Maher phase, or at least watched someone similar to him. Edgy, anti-religious, anti-establishment, but not really focused on any kind of political reform or ideology or change. Almost reactionary, but in a socially liberal way, fiscally conservative way, aka just a modern conservative. And nowadays, Bill Maher is just uncritically repeating right-wing talking points about trans people.
Yes, part of the rise in LGBT numbers is from people feeling free enough to tell it to a pollster, and that's all to the good. But some of it is, it's trendy. Penis equals man? Okay, boomer.
Because he thinks they're making good points here. Bill Maher, you know, he's a classical liberal. He just wants to conserve aspects of societal norms from anywhere to 20 to 50 years ago. Even though he is always claiming to be the most progressive, or at least the most practically progressive. He doesn't want trans women in sports, for example, because he thinks it makes the Democrats look bad. Which actually makes him the most progressive person, actually, because optics are more important than trans rights. What if the Republicans think it's weird? Ever thought about that? Then they're not gonna vote for you.
If this spike in trans children is all natural, why is it regional? Either Ohio is shaming them or California is creating them.
As you can tell, Bill Maher is a representative of the real, actual left. Not the transgender pronoun left, which isn't valid because they disagree with him. And he really seems to enjoy punching down on poorer people, or people tricked by Republican propaganda into voting against their own best interests. Even though Bill Maher has been tricked many times by Republican propaganda. Just not about guns or abortion, about trans people. And of course that makes it different. He's the intellectual, you see. You just start thinking about it like he's thinking about it.
Canceling Lincoln and Dr. Seuss, teaching children they're oppressors and math is racist, making Mr. Potato Head gender neutral, and now an emoji for pregnant men.
It shouldn't come as a surprise that Bill Maher is also a tremendous racist. Who would have guessed? I mean, he's only older than the Civil Rights Act. He's an antique of a human being.
Here's lovely Nima in a coquettish little outfit that showcases the girl inside the woman inside the stifling female containment unit. It's first-class clothing for second-class citizens.
No, let's keep him around. HBO, 10 more seasons of this. And then when he dies, just put the show on reruns forever. Or make new episodes with Maher GPT. Despite Bill not ever reaching levels that I would call funny as a comedian, he's done 13 total HBO specials since 1995, returning to the stage every 2 to 3 years to grace people with his smug, creepy presence. But back in January, Bill Maher decided to curse me in particular, with his newest and maybe worst special yet. Is anyone else seeing this? But before we get into that, I have to talk about his previous stand-up special for some important context. Maher's last special was filmed in 2022 and is called #Adulting, which is awesome because Bill was legally old enough to collect Social Security when this came out, and it shows. You can be old and still funny, by the way. George Carlin was 70 years old when he did his last stand-up special, and it was only a few months before he died. And I'd argue he was even funnier in his older years. You don't have to become more conservative and more of an asshole when you're older. In fact, that's not even a real social trend. That's a myth. But Bill Maher isn't just physically old. His material is old. His brain is old. So I watched #adulting before I watched the most recent Maher special, and oh my god, it could have been its own video, but it's so bad I don't even want to do it. The first 20 minutes or so are Bill Maher just ranting about masks and social distancing, even though it's 2022, which weren't really around that much at the time.
I still see some masks here. I see it all over when I work on the road. People in the crowd with masks, and I know they're vaccinated. I mean, do you keep the condom on after you fuck?
It really dates the special, and it hasn't aged very well at all. But most importantly, it's not even funny. Not even a little bit funny.
I still see young people alone walking outside with a mask. I want to fucking punch them and breathe on them.
It's the most generic, annoying, entitled, old, rich person ranting you've ever seen. The shit you'd expect from your MAGA stepdad or your uncle. Bill says it's time for COVID to be over, guys. It's time. He's done with it. Take your mask off. He doesn't like it. What I found especially gross, though, is that like 40% of this special is dedicated to directly attacking women who have come forward about sexual harassment.
These are her exact words, because she wrote a blog about it 5 years later. She said, "I felt two hands on my shoulders and froze." Okay, you're autistic then. Why is the vice president touching me? I don't know, because he's human. Sometimes humans do that. I don't think we need to run and get the rape kit just yet, you know? He kissed the back of my head. My brain couldn't process what was happening. Really? Your brain couldn't process that? Like string theory or wormholes? This cannot be the image women want or deserve. You know, I mean, yes, it's great we had a reckoning, but some stuff women, I'm sure, and I know most women can't, just handle yourself. If an old man comes up behind you, instead of waiting 5 years and writing a blog, how about just turning around?
Like, I'm not even joking, and neither is Bill.
Some people just had a bad date. Aziz Ansari had to go to woke jail for 2 years. He just had a bad date. It's a one-sided story. We only ever heard her side. Even by her side, nothing happened. I'm sorry you had a bad time on a date with a guy who was trying to get into your pants. That's life. You ever hear the phrase, you have to kiss a lot of frogs? Well, you chose to kiss this one. And by the way, you chose to let him eat your pussy by your account. It's true. I mean, you don't like a date? Leave. That's why restaurants have bathrooms with windows.
But don't worry, he thinks the word slut shouldn't exist.
And look, I'm not slut-shaming here. I don't even think there should be such a word as slut at all. Thank you, slut.
Because he's such a feminist. I guess you're supposed to laugh at how disgusting he's being?
So I'm not slut-shaming her, but come on, honey, you did let a guy you knew for 3 hours put his tongue in your cooch. So maybe stickler for the rules isn't your best persona.
This is exactly the kind of performative, phony, progressive loser shit that is structural to Bill Maher's tiny mind. I wanted this video to be fun, damn it. Bill had to fuck it up. He had to make it creepy. Oh, right, the #adulting thing. The special is called #adulting because apparently Bill Maher thinks Gen Z made that term. I don't know who told him this.
No, I love the kids today, I do. But, you know, they just seem to be locked into childhood as a way of life. You know, they even have a word for when they do something that isn't childish. Adulting. Have you seen this? #adulting. I scrambled an egg today. Adulting. I made a dental appointment. Adulting.
But Bill doesn't even care about getting his facts straight when it's important. So, and the joke is Gen Z can't do anything. They don't even know how to be an adult. Like Bill. Being an adult is when you have your own podcast in your weird, creepy basement, invite young women to touch them uncomfortably, and also do ad reads in the dark.
And the video and audio quality is far superior and uses less bandwidth, so users' computers don't freeze up.
Eventually, I'll probably do a whole video just about Bill Maher's creepy podcast, but I think I need a Bill Maher break before any of that. Okay, so now that I covered a little bit of #adulting, it will come back later on. Just don't forget about it. But now you can comment the little timestamp on when I actually start talking about the new stand-up special. You can comment that now. Put it in. Go. So Bill Maher's new special, like I said, is called Is Anybody Else Seeing This? Is anybody watching my special? That's what it should have been called. Bill takes the stage and gives a brief monologue about the modern political climate, because I believe this was filmed just after Trump's inauguration.
So he got the White House again, but he's not going to get my mind.
Okay, he's not a warlock. He doesn't have that power. Bill Maher is so obsessed with aesthetics because he's kind of narcissistic. I think he's sensitive to being called a liberal snowflake. And whatever spore taking root in his frontal lobe activates his contrarian reflexes when he feels like he might be called that. Yeah, guys, I'm not even gonna get upset or triggered when Trump does another Muslim ban or slashes the VA or deports Columbia College students for protesting Israel. I'm not gonna let him have my reaction, because me reacting is the real power. I wonder why you're not super motivated to say or do anything, Bill. Bill Maher then praises the progress America has made during his career as a comedian. That now he, as a wealthy white celebrity, can travel around the country with weed and not worry.
We're humans on Earth. There's always work to be done. But we've also made a lot of progress in a lot of areas. I mean, take something like pot. The fact that I can travel this country now without sweating bullets like I did for years and years.
Yeah, that's so totally new, Bill. That's never happened before. Bill Maher then dives into an anecdote about how he used to hide his weed at the airport.
I swear to God, for years, this is how I traveled. I took this much pot and I put it in Kleenex in a ball and hid it under my nuts. I swear to God I did that. I smoked my own ball sweat for like 30 years on the road.
Yeah, he hid his weed under his balls and smoked his own ball sweat for 30 years. I couldn't even come up with a metaphor that describes him more accurately than this anecdote. It explains so much about him and his brain. Now, I'm really glad I watched the previous special. Something told me, maybe it was God. But 15 minutes into Is Anybody Seeing This, Bill Maher repeats a joke from #adulting pretty much word for word.
Columbus had slaves. So did everyone in 1492 who could afford it, including people of color in other parts of the world. Applause for that? George Washington had slaves. Yeah, so did everybody back then, including people of color in other parts of the world. We're not applauding slavery, are we?
Nothing like recycling your own material 3 years later. That must feel fucking awesome to get away with. Is he just so old he forgot he already told that joke? Or is he just that fucking creatively bankrupt? I guarantee all of these jokes have basically been repeated over and over again on his travesty of an HBO show.
As a black friend of mine said, and I quote, "I'm doing aight."
And then he starts justifying slavery, because he, of course, has to do that. I think that's in his contract. To justify George Washington owning slaves, he says, well, everybody did it back then, which is not true. Not everybody took the teeth of their slaves to use as their own teeth either. George Washington did that. Not everybody did that, but George Washington did do that. Oh, don't cancel George Washington. He only had slave teeth. Well, what did you want him to use? Lamb teeth? That was my Bill Maher impression. I didn't really like it. Like, the idea that everybody had slaves back then, that's like baby's first history lesson. That's like what my first grade teacher told me to make me feel better. But I guess Bill thinks it's a real intellectual argument or a joke. Slavery wasn't that bad, everyone was doing it, and that makes it better. He also references other historic examples of mass slavery.
But it's just something everybody did. The Greeks did it, the Romans, the Egyptians, the Arabs, the British, all the way up to P. Diddy.
Which is such a dishonest and ahistorical comparison to chattel slavery, and we're not even 5 minutes in. I'm pissed off, Bill. I'm getting mad. I'm turning into She-Hulk. How do you like that? She-Hulk's trans now. The transatlantic slave trade and chattel slavery were so uniquely cruel and exploitative that there's just no comparison to any other form of mass enslavement in history. The concepts of race and color as social construct came from the pseudo-scientific justification of colonizers and genociders. Something you'll notice, though, about Bill Maher is that he's not much of a history buff. He doesn't really know any of it. So now Bill's complaining about drag queens, the biggest threat facing American society today.
We like drag queens. They're good people. Okay, but can we never get real? This whole thing, I feel like, is much more for the adults than it is for the kids. And I think that the kids are really hurt by it. But do we really need to be loud and proud with 5-year-olds? I mean, is it really so hard in this country just to not be exotic?
What I love about this part is that Bill Maher literally stomps his little old man foot on the stage while talking about queer people being too exotic. He's like a big, giant, old baby.
Where are my unexciting people? How about a hand for the run-of-the-mill? What about it for the unremarkable of us in the world, you know?
This is one of the weirdest things I've ever heard Bill Maher say. He is not uninteresting. He doesn't even believe that. He's just saying he's normal in different words, and queer people aren't. Bill is not uninteresting. He's a 70-year-old multi-millionaire comedian and actor who does a bunch of drugs and has no kids or family. Bill Maher is Leisure Suit Larry, the little pervert trying to get laid in the video game. And personally, I find that very interesting. Uninteresting is just not the right word here. Maybe if he said unfunny, he'd be right. Then he praises the opportunity to not have to wear masks anymore.
I'm gonna say, what a pleasure it is after 2 years of having to hear laughs through masks, bad for comedy, to now see these beautiful faces. If you still have a mask, I completely respect that. I think you're a fucking idiot, but I completely respect it. And that's my thing about, you know, who has the mask. It's Gen Z. It's like, who do I see walking outside alone with the mask on? What a bunch of pussies that generation is.
Again, I'm really glad I watched all of his last special because they only show the audience at the very end of that special, and no one is wearing masks. What the fuck, Bill? It's been 3 years in between these specials. What year do you think it is? I mean, my guess is that he's just still reusing old jokes.
The whole thing was so surreal, the way we went mental for 2 years and then just suddenly, boom, just right back to...
Man, guys, come on. Wasn't it crazy living through COVID?
I went to Cirque du Soleil in Vegas like less than a year ago. There's little people flying all over the state. They're 100 feet in the air, no net. 2 of them had masks on. I swear to God.
Oh, I'm Bill Maher. I saw Cirque du Soleil and they had masks on. They never wear masks as part of the fucking show. He's literally a triggered snowflake. But of course, he gets triggered over stuff that right-wingers also get triggered about, so it doesn't count. You're not triggered if you have continuous, repetitive, unfunny meltdowns over masks or hating transgender people. Bill Maher then lists the reasons he's not a Republican.
I'm not a Republican for all the reasons I never have been before. They're too religious.
Too religious. Meanwhile, almost every single Democrat is a Christian. Joe Biden was a Catholic. I mean, we know he's not psyched about having Muslim representatives, so I don't really know what he likes about the Democrats in this regard.
80% of Democrats in Congress are Christian, and 78% of Democratic governors. You can look this shit up, you know.
I guess he just doesn't like the fundamentalist Christians, which I guess same.
They're fiscal hypocrites who absolutely hate it when America spends money it doesn't have, except when they're in office.
Oh, thank God we got someone fucking speaking on the real issues, finally. The biggest problem with the Republican Party is that they don't pay into the national debt. Yeah, it's kind of just like if you're a person. You can't spend more money than you don't have. Bill Maher says that Republicans are in denial about racism.
They're in denial about racism, which is still a thing.
It's still a thing. It's still a hashtag thing. It's awesome because Democrats are not in denial about racism. They're very conscious of it, but they're also extremely unwilling to do anything about it.
They think climate change is a hoax and the weather girl's tits are real.
I always forget that Bill Maher believes in climate change because you'd think with what he says about almost everything else that he just wouldn't. It's just a weird holdover from the early 2000s. A lot of people who gained success in that time, especially in the political sphere, talked a lot about climate change and of course did nothing about it. Also, his joke about like they think the weather girl's tits are real. That's just gross. I feel like Bill Maher just wanted an excuse to say tits or talk about tits or just be like a creepy guy. Bill Maher is not a Republican because they blame the underprivileged instead of the overprivileged.
And they're always blaming the underprivileged when they should be blaming the overprivileged. And then they...
Which Bill Maher also does all the time in the case of trans people, Palestinians.
You don't realize that college campuses erupted with the kids demonstrating for Hamas? They are in with the terrorists?
They were for the Palestinians.
Well, it's sort of the same cause. Why, are you?
I'm on the side of the kids.
But Bill Maher is different because he is the center of the universe and can never be wrong about anything. Forgot about that part.
Don't tell me the left hasn't changed. I'm old enough to remember when it was the conservatives who hated the Jews.
This is such a new and weird genre of comedy that kind of only Bill Maher does. Bill Maher and like other Zionist weirdos like Michael Rappaport, who I wouldn't even call a comedian, about how, oh, the left wing hates Jews. The left is terrorists now. The left is like Arab terrorists. It used to be the right wing hated the Jews. I guess according to Bill, they don't anymore. They got over it. He laughs so hard at this, and it's just sad. He's so lost. He's so out of touch. He says he's tired of extremes and extremists.
That's my constituency. People who are just tired of the extremes, as I have, tired of the extremes and the extremists who control the debate but don't represent not close to a majority.
Even though there are right-wing extremists in the government right now, don't be extreme in your response to that. Please, be nice to them. He says he's tired of Trump. He's tired of a lot of things. He's really old. And he says he's done all the Trump material he has in the first term.
But I am not looking forward to Trump, too, because I already did all the jokes.
Which is a flat-out lie, because he immediately jumps into a long joke about Trump getting shot at.
Walk me through how you could stage a bullet hitting just the tip of your ear from 500 feet away. Yeah, shoot at my head.
I'm skipping through. This fucking special sucks. Bill Maher's glasses aren't even on all the way. He says the reason Trump does better with immigrants is because Democrats aren't pro-America enough.
Why does Trump keep doing better each time with immigrants? That's pretty amazing, and I think I know why. It's because liberals don't really look like they like America, and immigrants don't like the relentless negativity about a country they work so hard to get to.
Sorry, Madam President, I have a Glock wasn't fucking pro-America enough for you, apparently.
I have a Glock, and I've had it for quite some time.
Especially in the wake of the Trump inauguration, what are we pro-America about right now, Bill? He says no one gets canceled for being too woke, which is how you get a man being pregnant. A man can be pregnant. You can get a man pregnant.
This is one of the problems I think we have in this country. Nobody ever gets canceled for being too woke. That's how you get things like, men can get pregnant. And everybody's like, yeah, absolutely.
Which is funny because this is really close to that Joe Rogan bit about the pregnant man emoji. Oh, men pregnant. Get men pregnant. Get men pregnant. Plagiarism is not a victimless crime, Bill. Also, what the fuck do you want? Do you want to cancel trans men for getting pregnant? Yeah, you want to still have a kid? You're fucking canceled, you idiot. You should have thought about what if Bill Maher didn't like it. Then he starts ranting about how they canceled Dr. Seuss, which they didn't.
They went after Dr. Seuss. Yes, that Dr. Seuss, author of Green Eggs and Ham and other controversial works. Why? Because when he was drawing in the 1930s, he drew Chinese people with pigtails.
It's blatant Fox News propaganda.
Dr. Seuss is now considered a racist.
This is Rupert Murdoch's diarrhea. You're slurping it up, Bill. Stop that. I don't feel like people canceled Dr. Seuss. If anything, people popularized the story of his evolution as a person, having overcome his prejudices and publicly gone back on what he had believed in the past. It's a good example of how over time people can change and evolve and become better when they aren't stubborn, entitled, elitist creeps. Like Bill, that's who I was talking about there. He says you're not supposed to say homeless anymore.
Homeless. You're not supposed to say that word anymore. It's people experiencing homelessness.
This is made up. It's completely made up, and yet I keep hearing it. Shut up. Stop saying this. Homeless people live on the street. They literally don't care what you call them, and neither does anybody else. Put them in a house. Give them a house. Bill starts ranting about how liberals actually want to fix homelessness by getting them off the street, which is really vague. I don't like that. But the woke people want to let them sit in the street and sleep in the street because it's against the Constitution to rip up their tents and throw away all their belongings. As much as Bill Maher and liberals like him want to, you can't just throw homeless people away like they're garbage. And the fact is, these policies don't work. The data shows that they do more to perpetuate homelessness and further perpetuate their poverty. It's insane because no one woke wants homelessness to just be left alone. I mean, I personally think the government should be using eminent domain to seize hotels and apartment buildings for housing every homeless person that wants shelter. But then someone like Bill would call me Stalin for fixing the problem. No, actually, never mind. You're right, Bill. Maybe if the homeless get arrested for sleeping on a park bench with a bar in the middle of it to make it more uncomfortable, then they'll finally start choosing to live in a home. We have to spare Hilton Corporation and BlackRock from the big scary government. Can't go too far left. That's just as bad as going too far right. Bill says it's bad enough that they took away the R word.
It's bad enough they took away the R word, which is so desperately needed because this country is so R.
This is just such twisted framing from this little weasel. Bill, you can say the R word all you want. No one's stopping you. You're not gonna get arrested. You're not gonna get fined. You won't face any legal consequences. I mean, Elon Musk regularly says it directly to people who call him out. What Bill is actually describing is his own fear of the repercussions of saying the R word. He can say it, but people can say some things in return, and they can cut off deals with him, and they can not renew contracts with him. It makes you look like a bad person, kind of rightfully so. Cancel culture isn't fucking real. But regardless, Bill Maher is a coward because he can't do the mental gymnastics for everything else he's loudly stubborn about for a slur. Then he makes a reservation joke that is so bad the audience literally pauses because no one realizes he just told a joke.
You're not supposed to say reservation. I guess that's offensive to Indians, but what are you supposed to say when you go out to dinner?
This is just so fucking lazy. Now Bill Maher's talking about Mr. Beast.
You know Mr. Beast, the YouTuber, he puts on these amazing stunts, very often for charity. And he did one last year called Cured 1,000 People of Disability.
I'm gonna be honest, I didn't expect this at all. Mr. Beast, Mr. Bill Maher is talking about the curing the blind discourse that followed one of Mr. Beast's very popular videos. This is like years old discourse by now. I don't understand why Bill Maher is suddenly chiming in.
The Washington Post guy said, what needs curing is society's view of the disabled. And BuzzFeed agreed. They said, Mr. Beast seems to regard disability as something that needs to be solved. Okay, people. Do you see what I'm talking about with the crazy? Please, is anyone else seeing this?
Bill Maher does not believe in Jesus, but he does believe in Mr. Beast, and everyone should follow Mr. Beast and beg him to cure their disorders and ailments. Sorry, that's just a joke of mine. I'm sliding that in there. Let me know how you feel about all my jokes in the comments, please. Then Bill Maher goes like feral, bringing up an article challenging the idea of separating men and women's sports.
The Atlantic put out a cover story last year called Separating Sports by Sex Doesn't Make Sense. Yes, it fucking does. It makes perfect sense.
He's got that Joe Biden anxious dog wide-eyed stare. I can't tell if he's like really angry about the sanctity of sports or does he just look like that? Girls have cooties, okay? Don't know if you ever been checked out for them, but maybe you should. You stupid piece of shit. I don't know if I can nail the Bill Maher impression, I'm gonna be honest. It's kind of cool that Bill Maher has no skills or life experience or education or specialization at all. So half the time he's just assuming authority on shit he has no clue about. He was raised in 1946 and they did it right back then. And I don't think Bill Maher even played any sports. I don't think Bill Maher likes watching sports. When I was in high school, boys and girls played sports in PE all together. From volleyball to basketball to baseball. And when I played water polo in high school, we did scrimmage matches with both girls and boys teams. Co-ed sports are super common, and it's really weird to get super upset about it. Again, as a weird old man who's never played sports and doesn't really like them. If Bill was talking about sports in any other context, he'd probably be making a joke about how all sports fans are dumb Trump supporters that love football. Then Bill says children are too validated these days because they're treated like their thoughts are just as valid as adults.
We raise kids wrong, like they're just shorter adults, always blowing smoke up their little asses and calling them tiny geniuses, telling them their thoughts are just as valid as the adults. They're not. They're children. They're stupid like dogs.
Bill Maher has no children and is never married. Can't imagine why. But apparently he's a goddamn child psychiatrist all of a sudden. Wow, he must be so smart. This guy fucking knows everything. What he's saying, by the way, is the complete opposite of what child psychiatrists actually say. But it's okay, because Bill Maher knows better than they do, clearly. One of Bill Maher's examples of bad kid behavior is when he goes to his friend's house and the kids try to participate in the conversation.
I'm in people's houses that do sometimes, and I see this all the time. Kids as young as 10 will invite themselves into the adult conversations, and no one stops it.
How can you even say this and say it's a joke? This is a scam. This isn't jokes. This is a trick. These people should get their money back. HBO should get all of their money back for every special they've ever produced for him.
And then the kids get out and they're like, there's no good jobs. Yeah, because you majored in queer poetry of the Asian diaspora. Of course there's no jobs.
No one tell Bill what it's like to get a job with a computer science degree out of college. Everyone said learn the code, and yet they won't hire you as a janitor without 7 years of experience in a shipped product with your name on it. At least if you took gay Asian poetry, you'd have a good time getting your degree and become like a more well-read, well-rounded person. But instead, a bunch of STEM majors graduate college, can't get a job, and start a fucking meme coin instead. No, America on top. We're doing great. I wonder how Bill Maher knows what college kids are like these days, because I doubt he knows anyone under the retirement age. But it's actually hard for tons of college graduates to get a job right now because America is dying. Blaming the degrees people choose is the stupidest argument in the world, because half the people who get bachelor's degrees don't even work in related fields. They just get one because you usually have to for most jobs. But that's probably nothing. It's kids these days and their gay poetry. They won't stop majoring in gay poetry, and that's how you become homeless.
You went to a 4-year daycare center for the cry bullies of the privileged to complain about privilege. That is, when you weren't protesting for terrorist organizations. Really?
And all he has to say is, really?
Really?
Hamas destroyed. Argument obliviated. College liberals disintegrated. This is always where Bill Maher gets real nasty with it. He hates college student protesters for Gaza, almost as much as he hates victims of sexual harassment.
It's like rooting for the planes on 9/11. I say that's like rooting for the planes on 9/11. I knew you'd agree with it if you just gave it a minute. I know it's kind of shocking at first.
This is insane because Bill actually literally had his show Politically Incorrect canceled in 2002 for calling the 9/11 attackers braver than the American military.
He made this infamous comment less than a week after 9/11.
We have been the cowards, lobbing cruise missiles from 2,000 miles away. That's cowardly.
That is a
Staying in the airplane
yes.
when it hits the building.
That is
Say
a
what you want
terribly-
about it, not cowardly.
But you know, kids these days, they hate America. 9/11 might have been the last time Bill Maher said anything close to the truth. But of course, he immediately walked it back and praised the American military, which is really gross. No, guys, you don't get it. I love when we fire missiles. That's cool. He then tells all these student protesters for Palestine to go take a gap year in Iran.
Hey kids, I have a great idea for you. Since you love Hamas and Hezbollah so much, why don't you next year take your gap year in Iran? No, you're gonna dig it. You will dig it.
Which is great that Bill has so little to say about Gaza. He just cuts straight to the real issue, which is a completely different country. And honestly, Iran couldn't be less relevant to the college student protesters. Funding Hamas is not the worst thing the Iranian government does, I'll be honest. They do way worse shit than that. And coincidentally aligning on this one issue has nothing to do with the rest of the Iranian government's politics. It's just a stupid, dishonest argument that comes from propaganda. Then he makes the classic joke, Queers for Palestine.
Make sure to bring your Queers for Palestine t-shirt. They're very popular over there. And if you see the Ayatollah, tell him your pronouns. He loves that.
I can't believe how much of this material is just not new. Whether he said it before or someone else has said it before, this is just not, these aren't his jokes. This is a trick. This guy hates cancel culture, by the way, apparently, while trying to cancel some of the most progressive young people in America and trying to ruin their futures and get them kicked out of colleges. Makes it even weirder when you realize that many of the student protesters are Jewish themselves, but then it's seen as totally acceptable to systematically target them when they speak out about Palestine. That's weird to me. That's weird. Now Bill's whining about how they don't talk about how gender confirmation surgery is dangerous. No one's talking about this.
And they are kind of cavalier, are they not, about gender reassignment and make it sound like so simple and easy. Cut one off, snap one on. I mean, no, it's not. It's a major medical intervention that's going to affect your health for the rest of your life.
He says it's a major medical intervention. Yeah, no shit, Bill. No one's hiding that information from anybody. You stupid old raisin. Then he starts deliberating on, I guess, how crazy bottom surgery is.
We just gloss over this. You know that when they give you a penis you were not born with, I'm not mocking this or making fun of, but they cut the flesh out of your thigh, and forevermore you have a dick-shaped scar. Again, I'm not mocking it. Maybe it's a selling point some places, but
This is not comedy, by the way. You're describing a surgery because you think it's gross and weird. You fucking geriatric. He says he's somehow not mocking it, but he quite literally definitionally is.
I'm not mocking this or making fun of, but
then of course he says it's great to live in a time where transgender people are respected and protected.
We live in a time when trans people can be respected and protected as they should be.
Which is insane to say right after making fun of bottom surgery because you think it's weird. Even insaner right after Trump took office already and immediately banned trans people from the military and banned trans women from sports as far as receiving funding from the federal government. Where are the protections, Bill? You want to point them out to me? He says some of this, I guess, gender madness is a TikTok trend that got out of hand.
It's great we live in a time when trans people can be respected and protected as they should be, but some of this is also just trendy. Some of this is a TikTok challenge that got out of hand. And we are the only country who does it the way we do now.
Transgender is a TikTok trend. Yeah, that's going right in the thumbnail. Fuck you, Bill Maher. He says he identified as a pirate when he was a kid.
I wanted to be a pirate. Thank God they didn't take me seriously and schedule me for eye removal and peg leg surgery.
Which, you know, tracks with the one joke people have. He's basically saying attack helicopter. You always have to compare it to something that's not a gender. A lot of the time people go the transracial argument. Oh, can I change my race if I could change my gender? Which, like, no, that different things are different. But of course, Bill Maher decided to go with the dumbest possible example. Yeah, dude, pirate gender. You really think that's a good fucking comparison? All right, I'm skipping some of this freaking crap. He talks about how he doesn't like 69ing because he can't multitask.
Elbow in the ribs. 69. As if anybody ever did this. It's the MySpace of sex positions. It is the Betamax of fucking, right? I mean, nobody can do it. Everybody thinks they can multitask. They can't. I tried it. I couldn't do it. Are you kidding?
And that's really just one task. So 2 out of 10 on that joke. Oh, now he's back to the kids these days.
Let me just say, let me go back for 1 second to kids, because I've said a lot of bad things about the kids.
He's mad that in TV and movies, parents are too apologetic to kids.
I mean, I see kids in TV and movies, and it's just like the parents always apologizing to the kids. You know, everything, sorry, buddy.
This sounds like you're getting a call from the nursing home. TV these days doesn't have the parent hit the kids anymore. That's ain't how I was raised. The best way I could describe this stand-up special is a scattershot of, I guess, bitching, sour bitching. 1 minute, Bill's talking about how we never got married.
This may be why I never got married. I don't know, but...
And the next, he's like, I fucking hate hiking.
I went on one hike once. Oh, God, I hated it. It was like 20 years ago. I had a girlfriend, had a dog, and I had a dog. She said, let's take the dogs on a hike. Oh, fuck. It was hot and dusty. I hated the other hikers.
Dude, you are the worst. Who thinks this is funny?
Facebook has 56 gender categories. I'm happy for all of you. Great. Enjoy. I'm sure there are people who, you know, identify as a cat and shit in a litter box.
Oh, you can identify as a cat and shit in a box. I guess that goes back to the litter box in classrooms thing, which is about school shootings, which is apparently an issue Bill Maher cares about, but he'd rather own the transgender kids at risk of getting shot because, you know, he thinks they identify as a cat. Identify my asshole, Bill. Fuck you. He says men are pussified now and uses James Bond as an example.
I saw the most recent anyway, James Bond movie. Anybody see this? Oh my God, they pussified James Bond. He literally takes his girlfriend and her kid on his mission to save the world. He practically stops off at Target to buy tampons on the way to the underground volcano lair.
And I don't know a lot about James Bond, but the way he describes it kind of sounds like porn.
They've been making this movie for 60 years. It's a formula. James Bond always fucks 3 hot chicks in every movie. He fucks the scientist's daughter, he fucks the bad guy's girlfriend, and he fucks the super hot British agent he's working with, who's always like prim and proper.
And considering how much Bill seems to enjoy James Bond, I mean, maybe it is porn. Bill Maher closes the set by saying this.
We have to sit together again, talk to each other, don't cut each other off. Talk. Just not about politics.
Okay, it's finally over. That was so bad. Like, I knew this special would be bad. It's fucking Bill Maher. But I don't know how I could have expected this. I didn't deserve this. Bill has hinted that this might be his last HBO special, and I think it has to be. You have to quit comedy, Bill. You're not doing a good job. Don't keep doing this. Each comedy special I watch on this channel is getting worse and worse in quality, and I don't know what to do about it. Bill Maher is a relic from an older, much worse time. And he's desperately clinging on to the immature reactionary snark he's been rewarded for lazily dumping out on stage for decades. His comedy is less Carlin and more car crash and explode, and it's tragic and no one laughs. It's not a joke. You can't laugh. Most of Bill's routine is just him doubling down and justifying his crotchety old man opinion. And he's only gotten worse with age. More fixated on stupid nonsense, less interested in real politics, and more so in browbeating everyone who isn't on his level. Like I said, there's still more to talk about when it comes to Bill Maher and his horrible brain. He has a podcast I unfortunately have to talk about, but thankfully, not today. For now, thank you very much for watching. I really appreciate it. And I want to thank you very much, all of you, for the support on my last video. It really means a lot. I don't know if I've ever had a video do that well in that period of time. So thank you a lot for that. Make sure to subscribe to the channel, turn on all notifications to get notified when I post videos on the channel. You'd think that's what the subscribe button does, but I guess it doesn't. Drop a like on the video, follow me on my social medias in the description below if you want. Please don't make me watch any more stand-up specials. I don't want to. Just kidding, I probably will. Thanks again for watching. Bye.